Hey there and welcome, my name is Carlos Beres and let's start talking about what has been going on in the indie tabletop RPG scene. And as always, I'm not being directly sponsored by anyone mentioned here unless explicitly mentioned otherwise. And you can find all the links in the description together with some timestamps if you want to jump to the subject that better strikes your fancy. And also, as you can see, I am now back to my regular setup and my regular background. Okay, but let's move on. So this week we had a lot of releases actually, and this time around we are starting with some releases from RPG Latam, which is the Latin American tabletop RPG community. And first off is Dungeon Gig by Lucas Rolim, a minimalist OSR inspired RPG with some very interesting ideas. It uses only one stat and it plays with the known d20. Some interesting ideas from it is like the freeform casting and paying the cost of casting with HP. And it also includes some rules for a solo mode, which are more than welcome in this kind of still self-isolating time. Another one on the dungeoning or dungeon delving one is the Dungeon Delver by Alex Damasceno, or Gnarled Monster, as it's perhaps best known to you. This mini-zine, again, brings a game that does not use classes, it doesn't use levels, and it plays a lot with the idea of anything can be a weapon. So it's another one, minimalist one, that you can bring to your table. And both these games were published as part of the one-page RPG Jam, so it's just one sheet of paper, as well as Exile by Roll for Tarrasque. You play as someone that was exiled, perhaps incorrectly, but still exiled, and it plays with a simple d20 system. And this game around, you play as someone that was exiled and now has to live off grave robbing. And apart from that, it also features some lovely art. You should grab a copy because it's looking amazing. But also from RPG-C, the Southeast Asian scene, Pipedream is still in beta, but back into development as far as we know. And so if you can, you still can grab a copy at a reduced price, because actually right now, since it is in beta, it is on a reduced price. Once it gets to the full version, it will have a much higher price. So this is the time for getting your beta copy, and then you get also together when it's released the final copy of it. It is a Cthulhu Dark game by Kaipo, where you play as a halfling that uses some kind of magical pipeweed to improve their investigation skills. And since we are also talking some other news, Generation Analog will be happening on August 4th and 5th. It is a conference for tabletop games and education. This time it will have more than 30 panelists and speakers, and it will be fully digital, so fully virtual and online, and you can already register to it for free. You have so many different speakers that are so much interesting that you should get it, because it's free and it's online. You can watch it from any part of the world that you are. Also, an interesting piece of news is that the great game that is iHunt will be released in Brazilian Portuguese. Perhaps it is not important for some of you because you do not speak Brazilian Portuguese or something like that, but every new localization of an indie title is very important for the scene, because it brings so many different ideas and so many different people and population that can see the game, because then we are opening that up and bringing the idea of indie games to different spheres and a different public. Okay, so that is something that we should always be happy about, because having games released, indie games mostly, released in different languages, it's a very big deal for the whole scene, because then more people will also check other games. but on iHunt, okay? It is a high drama and story heavy game happening in modern times. It takes a critical look on gig economy and puts you in the position of a millennial, or some millennials because of the group, living paycheck by paycheck and that are hunting monsters. Seems an interesting idea, at least in my book, so you can get the English version also on the link in the description, because then you have the English version on PDF or even a physical copy if it strikes your fancy. On gems, because we are always talking on gems, we have one that is the tabletop RPG adjacent kind of idea, that is the paper miniature gem. It started some hours ago from the release of this video and will run until August 9th, and you have a kind of template for creating your miniatures on the gem page. This template was created by another RPG Latam one, the Alex Damasceno Gnarled Monster that I mentioned before, and also only miniatures created during the gem are eligible to be submitted. Okay, so apart from that, you do not have many complex rules, just respect rights for publication, make minis, paper minis, and that's it. And last, but certainly not least, the threads and posts that I mentioned. This time around, Matt Sanders created a very interesting thread about XP, so experience points, and what they represent in the game that you're playing, and what the growth of it can represent to your PC, your player character specifically. Another one, this time on Kickstarter environment and tabletop games, that brought a lot of talk, that is the Bianca Momato's thread that was put together with some interesting study on which part of the whole tabletop environment on Kickstarter is represented by non-D&D materials, the spending habits of D&D and non-D&D consumers and such. It is very insightful for the scene, although not every Kickstarter that is there is indie, because you have some companies that are big companies that also use the platform, but you have a very interesting idea and a very interesting image of what is the scene. Okay, for this week, I believe that's it. If you like the video, like the video, share, subscribe, you know how internet works. You can pay me a coffee on Ko-fi. You know that I will cherish every kind of donation. You can also buy my copies on my itch.io. You have some titles of myself there, and I will see you all in my next video. So, see ya!